There's a reason you feel so tired. There's a reason your energy feels scattered, your mind foggy, your confidence unsure. It's because you've been dealing with someone who doesn't love you, respect you, or even see you, not as a person. To them, you are a tool, a mirror, a pawn, someone who exists to validate, absorb, and supply. And the worst part? You know something's wrong, but they've made you doubt yourself for so long that you don't trust your own instincts anymore. That's not love, that's not even conflict, that's psychological warfare. But before we go deeper, write down in the comments where you're watching this from. Let's see who's waking up, because this message isn't for the naive or the soft-hearted. It's for the ones who've seen the mask slip and finally decided they're done playing nice. Here's the first truth you need to accept. Narcissists don't want love. They want attention, control, and emotional leverage. And as long as you keep trying to be fair, they will keep winning. You can't beat a narcissist with kindness, empathy, or good communication. That's what they exploit. That's the bait they use to hook you. You open up, they store your secrets. You explain yourself, they twist your words. You try to leave, they turn into exactly the person you wanted them to be, just long enough to pull you back in. What you're dealing with isn't someone broken who needs help. You're dealing with someone who is playing chess while convincing you it's checkers. They aren't chaotic, they are calculated. And here's where most people get it wrong. They keep reacting emotionally. They take the bait. They argue, defend, cry, justify. But Machiavelli understood something centuries ago that most still don't. Power doesn't belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to the calmest mind. In The Prince, he made it clear, those who control perception win. Narcissists understand this instinctively. That's why they're dangerous. They keep you unstable. They create chaos just to offer temporary relief. They manufacture guilt so you'll apologize for things you didn't even do. And if you try to walk away, they'll love bomb you, flatter you, mirror you, until you believe the first version of them was real. It wasn't. Machiavelli would never argue with someone who needs to be right. He'd observe, he'd listen carefully, and then he'd adjust his strategy to control the outcome, without emotion, without guilt, without hesitation. Because the one thing that breaks a manipulator's game is self-mastery. So ask yourself this: how much of your energy have you spent trying to get someone else to understand you? How often have you sacrificed your peace to explain your intentions? How many times have you caught yourself saying, maybe I'm the problem? That confusion, that exhaustion, that endless self-analysis, that's the effect of narcissistic control, and it ends today. Because once you understand the game, you don't play it, you study it, you master it, and then you make your next move in silence. To destroy a narcissist's control over you, you first need to understand what they're actually doing beneath the surface, behind the charming smile, underneath the carefully rehearsed persona. A narcissist doesn't operate like an average manipulator. They don't push from the outside. They get inside your head. They crawl in through your wounds, your insecurities, your desire to be seen, loved, and understood. And once they're in, they build a version of you that serves them. Not the real you, just the useful version. Their game isn't played openly. It's played in subtext, compliments with hooks in them, jokes that aren't really jokes, favors that come with strings so thin you don't see them until you're already tied up. And when you pull away, when you try to set boundaries, you'll meet one of two responses: rage or guilt. Both are weapons. Both are calculated. Both are designed to bring you back in line. Now here's the cold truth Machiavelli would point out. A narcissist only values what they can use. If they're nice to you, it's because your presence benefits them. The moment it doesn't, they either discard you or attack you for daring to have a spine. There's no real loyalty, only leverage. So how do they get that leverage? They don't overpower you, they disorient you. One moment you're the best thing that ever happened to them, and the next you're being punished with silence, sarcasm, or subtle public humiliation. It's emotional whiplash, and it's not accidental, it's strategic. Because once you're off balance, you start questioning yourself instead of them. You start asking what you did wrong. That's the trap. And that's where your strategy must begin. Not with fighting back impulsively, not with confronting them out of anger, but with seeing the pattern for what it really is. A machine. Predictable, programmed, and breakable. Machiavelli didn't write for the emotionally reactive. He wrote for those willing to play a longer game. He knew that power isn't seized through noise, it's taken through silence, composure, and psychological dominance. So, when dealing with a narcissist, your goal isn't to convince them of anything, it's to stop being a source of their supply. When you stop reacting the way they expect, when you go emotionally gray, when your praise dries up, when your presence no longer fuels their ego, they panic. But not in a way you'll see immediately. Narcissists hate silence because it leaves them alone with their own hollow core. That's when they start to reveal their desperation. That's when they slip. And when they slip, that's when you strike. Not with cruelty, but with distance, with emotional neutrality, with the kind of calm that makes them realize the game is over and they've lost the only audience that made them feel real. But you can't fake this kind of control. You have to become it. You have to understand what narcissists want more than anything, what they fear more than anything, and how you can use both against them without saying a single word. Here's the secret no one tells you until it's too late. Narcissists aren't strong. They only appear that way because they build their image on your confusion. Strip that illusion away, and what you find underneath is fragile, delicate, desperate. And once you understand what fuels them, you can start dismantling their power with surgical precision. What does a narcissist actually want? At the core, it's simple: attention. But not just any attention. They need admiration, validation, obedience. They feed off being seen as special, superior, irreplaceable. The moment you stop supplying that, you become a threat. And that's where the real game begins. Now listen carefully. Narcissists are obsessed with control, not just over situations, but over perception. They want to control how others see them, how you see them. But most of all, they want to control how you see yourself. They chip away at your confidence, not because they enjoy your suffering, but because a disoriented version of you is easier to dominate. That's why they alternate between praise and punishment. They build you up so they can break you down. That emotional pendulum is their favorite weapon. So how do you handle it? You break the pendulum. You remove the highs and the lows. You give them nothing. No praise, no anger, no reaction. That's what Machiavelli would call the strategy of strategic silence. Not because you're afraid to speak, but because you know the battlefield too well to waste bullets on noise. Your job now is to become unreadable. Predictability is your enemy. Narcissists thrive when they can anticipate your every move. They provoke and you explain. They guilt trip and you over-apologize. They lie and you argue. But once you stop reacting on cue, they start to malfunction. Their scripts don't work anymore. And don't think they won't notice. They will. In fact, they'll escalate at first. They'll accuse you of being cold, selfish, distant. That's the bait. They're trying to pull you back into the cycle. They need you to get emotional again, because when you get emotional, you become manageable. But when you stay calm, neutral, distant, when you look them in the eye without blinking, without flinching, they unravel. Why? Because narcissists don't actually know who they are. Everything they project is a mask, a lie, a carefully curated performance. And when you stop playing along, when you stop treating the mask as real, you force them to look into a mirror they've spent their entire lives avoiding. That's the psychological kill shot. Not rage, not revenge, detachment. Machiavelli taught that the strongest position in any conflict is the one where you no longer need the outcome. When you don't need to win, don't need to be liked, don't need to prove anything, you're untouchable. And narcissists hate that, because it means they've lost the one thing they can't stand to lose: your emotional obedience. So ask yourself this: can you stop reacting? Can you stop explaining? Can you sit in silence long enough to watch them fall apart trying to get a rise out of you? If you want to handle a narcissist the Machiavellian way, it's not enough to defend. You have to take control of the board. Let them think they're winning while you pull the strings behind the curtain, because the moment they realize you're the one steering the ship, it's already too late for them to jump off. Now that you understand their weakness, attention, control, ego, you can start laying traps in plain sight. And you do it with 3 tools: ambiguity, disruption, and mirror framing. Let's start with ambiguity. Narcissists need clarity, not for your sake, but for theirs. They need to know how you feel, where you stand, what you want, because they use that information to craft your reality. If you love them, they'll exploit your loyalty. If you're angry, they'll use it to paint you as unstable. If you're afraid, they'll use it to keep you compliant. But when you become unreadable, when your emotions are no longer available for analysis, you become dangerous. Suddenly, they are the ones walking on eggshells. They are the ones guessing, second-guessing, and unraveling. Second, disruption. Break their patterns. Narcissists rely on routine manipulation, predictable tactics, repeated strategies. They gaslight you, guilt-trip you, triangulate you with other people to stay in control. You've seen it. But what happens when you don't respond the way you used to? What happens when the guilt trip doesn't work? When you don't react to the comparison? When the passive-aggressive comment lands in dead air? The narcissist starts to feel something they hate more than anything else: irrelevance. And when someone addicted to control starts to feel irrelevant, they begin to overplay their hand. They push harder, reveal more, expose themselves, because they're trying to force you back into the game. That's when you move to phase 3, mirror framing. And this is where the power shift becomes permanent. Mirror framing is when you use the narcissist's own behavior as a reflection, not through confrontation, but through contrast. You stay calm while they escalate. You stay kind while they get cruel. You stay rational while they become erratic. And you let other people see it. This is what destroys the narcissist's social armor. Not you exposing them, but them exposing themselves. In Machiavellian terms, this is called leading your enemy into public contradiction. It's how you turn their greatest strength, their image, into their biggest liability. And the best part? You don't have to do anything dramatic. Just keep showing up with self-respect, boundaries, clarity, and consistency. Because narcissists can only maintain the act for so long, eventually the cracks show. And when they do, your silence becomes a spotlight. But here's a warning. When you take their power away, they'll come for yours. They'll test you, try to break you, pull out the emotional weapons that once worked so well: shame, blame, charm, chaos. That's how you know the trap is working, because the more unhinged they become, the more you realize just how dependent they were on your compliance. And now, they're chasing you, not because you've become someone new, but because you stopped being someone they could control. Once a narcissist realizes they're losing control over you, they won't retreat quietly. They'll escalate, and the shift is fast. One day they're flattering you, the next they're tearing you down. The praise turns to passive aggression, the charm turns into threats. They'll test every weak spot they once had access to, hoping there's still a crack in the door. But if you want to win, you don't just hold the line, you reinforce it. This is the phase where most people fold. They get caught off guard by the sudden cruelty. They start questioning themselves. Was I too cold? Maybe I overreacted. I should explain myself. Don't. That's exactly what they want, for you to start explaining again, justifying, defending, becoming reactive. It reopens the loop. It puts them back in the driver's seat. Remember this: you are not cold for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for protecting your peace. What they call harshness is simply the absence of your obedience. And what they label change is just you choosing not to be manipulated anymore. Now here's what to expect when the spiral begins, and how to respond. First, the guilt campaign. They'll play the victim, twist the story, act like you wronged them. They'll weaponize empathy, say things like, "After everything I did for you," or "I guess you never cared." But this is just bait. The moment you take it, apologize, comfort, explain, you're back in the web. Stay calm, stay brief. "I'm not available for this conversation." That's it. No emotion, no engagement. Silence speaks more than 1,000 rebuttals. Second, the smear campaign. If they can't guilt you, they'll try to ruin you. Spread lies, twist the truth, turn mutual connections against you. This is where most people panic. But here's the Machiavellian principle. Never interrupt your enemy when they're destroying their own credibility. If you've been consistent, respectful, and clear, people will notice the gap between your behavior and the chaos they're trying to create. Let the facts speak louder than the drama. Hold your position with dignity. That's your shield. Third, the Hoover. When all else fails, they'll circle back. This time with apologies, promises. I've changed. I've been thinking a lot. I miss you. This isn't transformation. It's strategy. Narcissists don't return because they love you. They return because your absence exposed their weakness. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that tolerated them. Don't give it back. The spiral is not a sign that you're being too harsh. It's proof that the mask is slipping and they're scrambling to put it back on. This is where you hold the course. You've come too far to turn around now. You've pulled away the illusion, and the narcissist is no longer the storm. You are. Controlled, centered, still. Here's the reality no one wants to admit. Narcissists don't survive on logic, truth, or love. They survive on access. Emotional access, psychological access, energetic access. As long as they can reach you through guilt, obligation, kindness, hope, they win. That's their weapon. That's how they maintain control. Not with force, but with your permission. They don't need to overpower you. They just need you to keep responding. So the only way to beat a narcissist is to take away what they need most. And what they need is you. Not the real you, but the emotional energy you give when you defend yourself, when you explain, when you plead, when you get angry, when you show them that they still matter. That's their oxygen. Your attention is fuel. Your reactions are supply. Your hope is their safety net. You want to see a narcissist spiral? Don't yell, don't beg, don't fight. Just stop showing up. Stop being available for the performance. No more stage, no more spotlight, no more applause. When you go silent, not out of rage, but out of awareness, they unravel. Because a narcissist without an audience is just a shell, a fragile, empty performance with no one left to manipulate. But make no mistake, they will not go down quietly. When you pull away, they will feel it like a drug withdrawal. They'll become erratic, explosive, unpredictable. They'll flip between charm and cruelty like a switch, testing every angle they know works on you. The tears, the rage, the promises, the nostalgia, the gaslighting, it's all one desperate strategy: get you to react. If you react, they're back in the driver's seat. If you stay silent, they lose everything. And this is where most people fail. Not because they're weak, but because they still have empathy, because they feel bad, because they think being kind means staying open. But let's be clear. Being emotionally accessible to someone who repeatedly uses that access to control you is not kindness. It's self-abandonment. And here's where Machiavelli would be brutal. He would tell you, mercy is wasted on those who use your humanity against you. He wouldn't tell you to fight them. He wouldn't tell you to fix them. He would tell you to become untouchable to them. And the first step is understanding this. You owe them nothing. Not your response, not your justification, not your explanation, not your presence. Your silence is not an absence. It is a boundary. It is a message. It is a full declaration of power. You're not ignoring them. You're eliminating the channel they once used to reach you. And when they realize they no longer have that access, they'll do what every parasite does when its host pulls away. They'll wither. Because without your emotional engagement, they are powerless. Let them call you cold. Let them call you cruel. Let them scream that you've changed. That's projection. That's panic. That's their chaos trying to drag you back into the role you finally walked away from. And you need to let them sit in it. Let them experience the silence that used to be filled with your validation. Let them feel the distance that used to be your closeness. Let them sit in the absence of your energy. That's not punishment, it's reality. And it's long overdue. Because the most dangerous thing you can ever do to someone who thrives on control is walk away without looking back. If you want to be free, there's one illusion you must destroy completely, ruthlessly, without hesitation. The illusion that the narcissist will ever change. This is the anchor that keeps people stuck, the hope that maybe one day they'll wake up. Maybe if you say it the right way, maybe if you're patient enough, kind enough, forgiving enough, maybe if they lose you, they'll realize what they had and come back different. Let me be blunt. They won't. They don't grow from loss. They escalate from it. They don't self-reflect. They self-preserve. Narcissists don't become better people after losing someone. They become better manipulators. And I know that's hard to hear, especially if you've invested years of love, effort, and emotional labor into someone who kept promising they'd change. I know how hard it is to admit that all the pain you endured, all the excuses you made, all the faith you held on to, wasn't a chapter in a redemption arc. It was a cycle, a trap, one that you were never meant to fix because it was never your job to begin with. Here's the Machiavellian truth. People don't change because you love them hard enough. They change when they lose what they cannot replace. They change when their own survival depends on it, not yours. But narcissists, they rarely hit that wall, because there's always someone new waiting, someone to flatter them, believe them, chase the version of them that doesn't exist. That's why they don't evolve. They just recycle. And while you're healing, they're recruiting. That's why the worst pain isn't what they did to you. It's what they did next. How easily they moved on. How quickly they rewrote the story, cast you as the villain, and painted themselves as the victim. That kind of cruelty feels personal, but it's not. It's their pattern. You just finally stop fitting into it. So here's what you need to understand. The fantasy of their transformation is the last thread keeping you tied to their reality. It's not love. It's trauma. It's a deep, aching need for validation that was never going to come. You weren't wrong for seeing their potential. You weren't weak for wanting to believe in them. But now you need to believe in something else, yourself. You need to shift the narrative away from fixing them and toward freeing you, because that version of them you fell in love with, it wasn't real. It was a mask, a tailored, strategic projection of everything you wanted to see. But the person behind that mask has shown you exactly who they are. Now the question is, will you finally believe it? Once you finally let go of the illusion, once you shatter the fantasy that kept you trapped, something powerful happens. You realize you don't need to out-argue them, you don't need to expose them, you don't even need to punish them, you just need to become unreachable. This is where most people slip. They think freedom means winning some last conversation, delivering a final speech that will devastate the narcissist and validate their pain. But that's still playing their game. That's still seeking recognition from someone who was never capable of giving it. Machiavelli would tell you, true power is silent. True power is not standing there explaining yourself to someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. True power is building a world, mentally, emotionally, physically, where they no longer have any access to you, no doors left open, no secret passageways, no hidden hopes. You don't owe them one more text, one more conversation, one more answer to, "Why are you doing this to me?" You owe them silence, distance, closure, but only closure with yourself, not with them. This is the pivot most never make because it requires an internal shift so violent that it feels like betrayal. You have to betray the version of yourself that still hopes, that still explains, that still tries to rescue. You have to betray the illusion to protect the truth.